Hoi doorzetters. Today I wanted to reflect on how money is not the only human currency. And it was a concept that I was thinking about for a few months now. And I thought it was time to just talk about the concept. So we often think that money is a form of currency, and that's what it is, obviously. But there are other forms of currency, and I wanted to talk about them. So, time is a form of currency. We choose to spend our time, and it's limited. And there is a relationship between money and time, because if you're working, you might be earning a certain amount of money per hour. So in a sense, you invest time and then you get money as money back. So there is kind of an exchange between money and time. And that's a very interesting concept. Time, at the moment, we are all mortal as humans, so it's a limited resource, and we need to decide where we allocate our time. So for example, when I chose to learn Dutch maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I had to invest time. But I see that as a great investment, because that time earlier on in my life that I spent is paying dividends even today, almost 10 years later, because I can use the language and experience the language, and it gives me a new perspective on the world. But I've done other things, as we all do, for example, doom scrolling, where we lose time and then we get nothing from it. So how we invest time is very important. The next currency I wanted to discuss is experience. And what I mean by that is, as we move through life, our brain is like a sponge. It is absorbing information. It is, we're perceiving the environment around us, what people are saying, what's happening around us, what we're reading, what we're watching, content we're consuming, the social circles we choose to interact with, the activities we do, whether it be dancing, watching movies, cooking, but we are expending our experience. And it's similar to time, but it's not exactly the same thing, because the idea of experience as a currency is that you're constantly spending that experience. Your brain is constantly molding every second of your life based on where you choose to place yourself. And we have a limited amount of that experience because our life is limited. And I wanted to say, when you think of the experience as a currency, then you start to think how important it is to spend that experience in ways that is going to create a more fulfilling life and bring you peace. For example, if you are spending time with people that are always complaining and speaking negatively, that your experience is being expended while you're in that vicinity of that negativity. And that is actually draining a resource, and that will actually have a negative effect on you. But if you spend your experience with people that are going to uplift you, people who are going to make you believe in yourself and feel more positive, then, or help you to grow, then that's a great use of experience. Other things, for example, learning a language, spending time learning a language and spending your experience doing that. For example, if I'm engaging in another language or absorbing information in another language by watching Star Wars in Portuguese, for example, I see that as a positive use of my experience, because it's shaping my brain, but it's going to have an effect on me in the long term, because in the future it will help me to interact better with people that speak Portuguese. So I wanted to talk about that concept of experience and how think of it in terms of how you can spend experience to develop skills, to improve your own mental health, and create a better conscious experience for yourself. So that was the other one. And the next currency I wanted to discuss is dopamine, which is known as colloquially as like a hormone for motivation and enjoyment. But the thing is, dopamine is a hormone that we developed as humans in order to complete tasks and in order to achieve things. Yes, it might be associated with pleasure, motivation, but it has a function, it evolved, it has a biological function that helped us in our evolutionary history. And I like to think of the time we live in today as the great dopamine heist, because we are using technology that is draining our dopamine. When you are on a social media platform, or when you open a notification, when you got a like or something, or I see a new subscriber on the channel, please do subscribe though. A human will get a peak of dopamine. But this peak of dopamine, in the past, someone would have had to work very hard for that. For example, if you were a hunter-gatherer, you would have had to work very hard to get that dopamine, and that would enable you to continue to hunt and gather, because you would get a feeling of reward as you move towards your goal, and that would encourage you to continue to move towards that goal of hunting and gathering, and also more likely to repeat that behavior in the future, which would improve survival. But we are using technology that has kind of hacked our dopamine circuitry. And dopamine is, we are always making dopamine, but I do see it as a form of currency, because you need to think of it as, throughout your day, how are you going to spend your dopamine? If you spend your dopamine on doom scrolling, or like looking at social media, then it will drain your motivation, and then you'll be less likely to do other things and other tasks. So I think thinking of dopamine as a currency is also very effective. And I've had to reflect a lot about dopamine after having had my ADHD diagnosis, which I'll talk about more in the future. And another currency I wanted to talk about is cognitive bandwidth. So I see cognitive bandwidth as the amount of energy your brain has at its disposal to do different things, or to go through life and overcome challenges and also perform tasks. And realizing that this each day, it's a currency that we're limited. Yes, if we eat well, sleep well, have good exercise, also good habits in terms of psychology, like mindfulness, we can do all these things that help us to kind of leverage our cognitive bandwidth better, or sometimes improve our cognitive bandwidth. But we need to remember that when we spend too much time doing something that is draining our cognitive bandwidth, but not actually producing a positive output, that can be very negative, because it means that you can be drained, and then you lose the ability to do other things that will help you towards your goals. So that's why I want to give an example, but finding systems. So I always lose my keys, and I've lost them hundreds of times in my life. And it's tragic to think how much energy and cognitive bandwidth over the years I've spent. I'm trying to remember where my keys are at the moment. I think I put them in the right place, but thinking about spending so much bandwidth thinking about where they are and trying to find them, draining my brain's energy of that resource, and then maybe making life harder in other areas. And that's why finding systems. So now I have a bowl by my door and I put my keys in as soon as I enter the house. And that's basically meaning that I do not have to expend cognitive bandwidth later looking for my keys. So I'd say that when you understand cognitive bandwidth as a limited cognitive resource and a currency, you then realize how important it is to find the easiest way to do something effectively. For example, my signature used to be very long, but I reduced the length of my signature by about 60 to 70%, so now it's very short, and it takes much less effort to write my signature, and I have to write my signature many times every day on average. And just reducing the length of my signature has reduced the cognitive bandwidth that I'm expending each day on that task, which allows me to perform other things better. So cognitive bandwidth is a underrated currency. And another thing I wanted to say was that's why Elon Musk talks about how we have an amazing visual cortex, because we take in so much information. And that's why ergonomically setting up your office in a way that optimizes your cognitive bandwidth can be so good. So that's why having 2 or 3 screens can be better than having hundreds of nested tabs, because if you have 2 or 3 screens, you can absorb the information without having to go between tabs that are nested in different places. And I think that effectively using your screen space on your computer is another way to optimize the use of your cognitive bandwidth. There was one other currency that I was trying to remember. I think there are other currencies of human life that I want to talk about, but they're not coming to me at the moment. But if you like this concept, let me know, and I'm going to make a refined video based on this concept. But I wanted to put this video out there as a starting point. Blijf doorzetters. If you enjoyed this, please like it. Please subscribe if you'd like more of this kind of content. I really appreciate it, because that allows me to know whether you're benefiting from this content. Thank you.